Sit back and enjoy 2 hours of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let's get started. In the early years of the 20th century, horses were causing so much pollution from waste left on the streets that automobiles were seen as the environmentally friendly alternative. In some cities in China, pollution is so severe that living there for one day is equivalent to smoking 21 cigarettes. According to estimates made in 2016, there are at least 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. Before that, it was believed there were 10 times fewer. In Russia, there was a time when wealthy people hired fake ambulances to move faster through the city during heavy traffic. They were very expensive, but had luxurious interiors and caviar and champagne service. Owls' ears are uneven. They are located at different heights on their heads, and sound reaches one ear before the other. This helps them locate animals they hunt using only sound. Astronaut Neil Armstrong once said that his grandmother told him before going to the moon to look everywhere before stepping on it, and not to do so if he saw anything strange. Armstrong promised her he would. The coco de mer plant, found in Seychelles and the Maldives, has the largest seeds in the world. They can weigh up to 52.9 pounds and have a very unusual shape. Adding iodine to salt was proven to increase average intelligence quotient scores in the United States by nearly 4 points, while in specific areas with iodine-deficient populations, it increased by up to 15 points. Pepto-Bismol was originally created to treat cholera. The original formula was used to calm symptoms, but later it continued to be used for simpler conditions until today. It is one of the few medications that contain the mineral bismuth. The largest gold bar in the world weighs 551.2 pounds and has a value of $14 million. It was displayed at the Toy Gold Museum in Japan, and people were allowed to touch it. There is a breed of completely black chickens in Indonesia called ayam cemani that, in addition to having black feathers, also have black legs, black beaks, and even black internal organs. In ice cream advertisements, they actually use mashed potatoes, modeling clay, or other substances to recreate the product instead of real ice cream, since with filming time and lighting, it would be impossible to keep it frozen. According to a study that was conducted, dogs truly like the high-pitched and playful tone of voice that people use when talking to them. Lactose-free milk can last up to 5 weeks longer without spoiling than whole milk, the regular kind, but that is before being opened, because once you open them, both will spoil in 3 or 4 days. Acetaminophen is extremely toxic to cats because they do not have the proper enzyme to break it down. They can suffocate even if they consume a very small amount. Microsoft tried to monopolize the web browser market when they were just getting started. It was difficult to install other browsers, and Windows generally became slower if you uninstalled Internet Explorer. I think they should have focused on making a better browser. In ancient Greece, to declare your love to someone, you had to throw an apple at them. The apple was associated with Aphrodite and the symbolism of desire, so throwing it could be interpreted as a romantic proposal. If the other person caught it, it was understood as an acceptance of the feeling, turning the gesture into a symbolic form of courtship. Crows can recognize human faces and can communicate with other crows if they believe a human may be dangerous. They have also been seen using improvised tools to obtain food. There are at least 18 muscles in dogs' ears, which is why they can move them so easily. This mobility improves their hearing ability and helps them detect the direction and distance of distant sounds. Lightning has not brought down an airplane since 1963. This is because airplanes are now built in such a way that electricity does not collide with the aircraft. It simply travels along it and then continues on its way. The average computer user blinks only 7 times per minute. The normal rate is 20 times. That is why it is recommended to rest your eyes when you are on the computer. By reducing blinking, the surface of the eye dries out more easily, which can cause irritation and eye strain. A common recommendation is to apply the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, look at something about 20 yards away for 20 seconds. The Kitti's hog-nosed bat, or bumblebee bat, is the smallest mammal in the world. It lives in Myanmar and Thailand and, unfortunately, is an endangered species. Polar bear fur is not actually white. It is transparent, and the hairs are hollow to help protect them from the cold. In addition, their skin is dark, but in hot and humid climates, it can happen that their fur turns green due to mold and algae that can grow inside the hairs. In the 1830s, ketchup was sold as medicine. Those who sold it claimed it was a cure for indigestion. It was discovered that there is a rust-eating bacteria that is devouring the wreck of the Titanic, and it is believed that in just 20 years, there will be nothing left. Sounds like the perfect script for Titanic 2, The Return of Jack. There are blue bees. They are called Xylocopa cerulea, and they do not build honeycombs. They prefer to live inside tree trunks and inhabit Asia. The Amanita phalloides, or death cap mushroom, is one of the most toxic mushrooms. Because it is very similar to edible mushrooms, it causes almost 50% of mushroom poisonings. It can cause coma and, in more serious cases, death. The largest parasite of all is the tapeworm that can live in the human intestine. Some can live up to 20 years and can measure up to 59 feet. Even though gastric juices are very acidic, you cannot dissolve chewing gum. Small pieces pass through the digestive system, but large amounts of this candy can cause blockages. People who are struck by lightning can develop red patterns on their skin called Lichtenberg figures, which are scars caused by broken blood capillaries. A man from India named Radhakant Bharti has the longest ear hair in the world. It measures 5.2 inches. He considers it a gift from God. Sharks have survived 5 mass extinctions. These animals have existed for more than 400 million years, long before the dinosaurs. Over time, they have managed to adapt to extreme changes in the oceans, which explains why they remain one of the oldest marine predators on the planet. The yellow pigment known as Indian yellow was originally made from dried urine of cows that had been fed mango leaves and water. This pigment was widely used by painters in the 18th and 19th centuries because of its intense and luminous color. Over time, its production was banned because the method was considered cruel to animals. In the 13th century, it was a custom in Norway to baptize children with beer. This happened in part because beer was often safer to drink than water, which could be contaminated. In addition, the drink was an important part of traditions and celebrations in medieval Scandinavian society. In the Philippines, there is banana ketchup. During the Second World War, there was a shortage of tomatoes, and it seems that bananas were the first substitute people found, and people liked it. To imitate the color of traditional ketchup, vinegar, sugar, and red coloring were added. Over time, it became a very popular condiment in Filipino cuisine. Using a microwave oven to cook does not remove nutrients from food. Contrary to what many people think, it is usually one of the most nutritious cooking methods. The English word orange was the name of the fruit for several hundred years before the color was named after the fruit. Before that, what we now know as the color orange was called yellow-red. This change happened gradually as the fruit became more common in Europe, influencing the language and replacing earlier descriptions with a more specific term. Fluffy cows exist as a result of breeding several high-quality cattle lines. This type of livestock has been selected for its appearance and its dense, soft coat, which requires special care and is highly valued in agricultural shows. Its characteristic look is achieved through genetics, controlled feeding, and grooming techniques that enhance its volume and texture. Blind people smile even though they have never seen anyone else smile because it is a natural human reaction. Basic facial expressions are largely determined by biology, which shows that some emotions are expressed universally. Studies have observed that even people who are blind from birth display similar expressions in emotional situations, reinforcing the idea that they do not depend solely on visual learning. A grizzly bear's jaw is so strong that its bite could crush a bowling ball. Its bite force can exceed 1,000 pounds per square inch, allowing it to break bones easily and access nutrient-rich marrow, a key source of energy in its diet. In addition, its powerful jaw muscles and teeth are adapted both for tearing meat and crushing hard foods like roots and nuts. Chocolate cosmos is a non-edible flower that smells like chocolate. Its sweet aroma is completely natural and makes it highly appreciated in gardening, although it is a delicate species that requires specific care to stay healthy. It is native to Mexico and, due to its rarity, was once considered extinct in the wild, being preserved thanks to human cultivation. Putting sugar on a wound or cut will greatly reduce pain and speed up the healing process. It is a traditional practice that has been mentioned in some contexts, but it is not a recommended method today. Although sugar may have properties that inhibit bacterial growth, its use without medical supervision can cause irritation or infections, so it is better to use proper and safe treatments. Nomophobia is the fear of being away from your cell phone. The term comes from the English expression no mobile phone phobia and reflects the anxiety some people feel when they do not have access to their device. especially in an era where much of daily life depends on it. This phenomenon has become more common with the constant use of social media and messaging, affecting concentration and well-being in some cases. Barns are traditionally red, but this was not intentional. It is because farmers made their own coating by combining oxidation with linseed oil. Oxidation prevents fungi and algae from forming on the wood, but it is also red in color. When musician Sun Ra once performed a show in a psychiatric hospital, he encouraged a patient to speak for the first time in many years. The patient walked toward his piano and exclaimed, "You call this music?" Apple generates revenue at an enormous rate. If it is calculated from its recent annual sales, which are around $400 billion, the company earns on average more than $12,000 per second worldwide. German doctors were the first to identify the link between smoking and lung cancer. In fact, in the 1930s, some of the first epidemiological studies on the topic were conducted, and early anti-tobacco campaigns were promoted, although within a very particular historical context. Beer soup was a very popular breakfast during the Middle Ages in Europe, and it was indeed made with beer and commonly included bread. The oldest known cat video was filmed in 1894, and you can find it on YouTube. The Netherlands exports more soy sauce than Japan. This is because the European country has large production plants and logistics centers that distribute this product throughout Europe. Many international brands produce or bottle the sauce there to facilitate its export to different markets. Natural black roses are incredibly rare and exist only in Halfeti, Turkey. Their dark color is due to a unique combination of soil and water conditions from a nearby river. In reality, during certain times of the year, they can appear a very deep red that looks black. Ronald Wayne was the third founder of Apple and once owned 10% of the company, but he decided to sell his share in 1976 for only $800. Today, Apple is the most valuable company in the world. Skipping breakfast does not actually contribute to weight gain, health problems, or lower sports performance. But it is still not recommended because when else during the day can you eat cereal out of a cup? Just saying. After 35 years of leaving school, people can still identify 90% of their classmates. Frederick Bauer, the creator of Pringles, had his ashes stored in a Pringles can after he died. His family fulfilled this wish as a symbolic gesture, choosing an original flavor can to honor his most recognized invention. In 2011, Nike founded a group to train ultra-high-level runners with equipment that included underwater treadmills and a house that reduced oxygen using filters to simulate high-altitude environments, but it was closed in 2019 after receiving heavy criticism. Based on a study conducted on 6,000 people, it was discovered that 1 out of every 3 men does not wash his hands after going to the bathroom. Do not be part of that statistic, please. The actress Gemma Arterton was born with 6 fingers on each hand. The doctor who assisted in the birth tied them off until they fell off. Only the scars remained. There is a swing on the edge of a cliff in Ecuador that has no safety measures, hanging from a treehouse with a view of an active volcano, known as the swing at the end of the world. It has become popular among tourists seeking adrenaline, although using it involves considerable risks due to the lack of protection. In the St. Louis Olympic Games of 1904, 523 of the 630 athletes who participated were from the United States. Only athletes from 12 other countries attended. At that time, it was slow and expensive to travel to that city for most people in the world. Cheetos are designed to melt in your mouth, making your brain think that you are not consuming calories. That is why you never get tired of eating them. There is an uninhabited island in the Bahamas that is informally called Pig Beach because it is full of pigs that like to swim. The place is known as Pig Beach, and it is located in the Exuma archipelago. It is not known with certainty how the animals arrived there, but today they swim out to tourist boats. The Philippine island of Luzon contains a lake that contains an island that contains a lake that contains another island. This phenomenon occurs in Taal Lake, creating a layered geographic formation that is considered one of the most complex and curious in the world. It is an active volcanic caldera, where these formations emerged over multiple eruptions and changes in water levels over time. If you stand under the Big Ben clock tower in London with a digital radio tuned to the BBC, you will hear the chimes on the radio before hearing them directly. This means that sound waves travel faster digitally from the tower's microphone to the station and to your radio than from the real bell to your ear. In 2017, nearly 25,000 Kinder eggs were confiscated at United States Customs. Those chocolates with toys inside are banned in the country. Over a distance of about 0.62 miles, a carrier pigeon is faster than a fax machine. Strange as it sounds, transmitting a document by fax can take several minutes because of scanning and data transmission. A trained pigeon can travel that distance in a few seconds if it flies directly to its destination. The first modern toilet was made by Thomas Crapper, which is where the English phrase for going to the bathroom comes from. Although his name became popular in this context, the toilet already existed before, and he mainly contributed to improving its design and spreading its use. His innovations helped standardize more efficient plumbing systems in growing cities during the industrial era. In Fiji, there is an island called Tavarua that has a heart shape and is surrounded by a coral reef. Surf competitions are held there every year. When alcohol was banned on United States Navy ships in 1914, they held one last party and invited ships from other countries to join. A few weeks later, many of the guests at the party would become rivals when World War I broke out. If you hear someone yawn, if you read something about yawning, or if you see someone yawn, it will make you yawn. The cause of this reaction is something that continues to be studied to this day. You can buy a replica of the light cycle from Tron Legacy that is completely street legal for $55,000. These versions include special lighting and futuristic designs, although their functionality is similar to that of a conventional motorcycle adapted for everyday use. In 1963, during the Cold War, the United States military launched 480 million copper needles into space so they would disperse and orbit Earth. They were intended to reflect radio waves for communication in case the Soviets cut underwater cables. But that did not happen, and the needles are still floating there today. In Germany and in Austria, it is not a crime to attempt to escape from prison, since it is considered a human instinct to want to be free. The same applies in Mexico. Seriously. In France, it is legal to marry a dead person if you can prove that the wedding had already been planned beforehand. This type of union is known as a posthumous marriage, and requires the approval of the President of the Republic. The law was created after a tragedy in 1959. Before the 17th century, carrots were actually purple. They did not become orange until a mutation occurred. European farmers began selecting this variant for its color and flavor, and over time it became the most common, although purple, yellow, and white varieties still exist. Some of the oldest known pieces of writing are actually complaints sent to a businessman named Ea Nasir for doing poor work in Mesopotamia. He even used an entire room to store all the clay tablets with the complaints engraved on them. The most searched tutorial on YouTube is how to kiss. For years, searches related to kissing, relationships, and romantic advice have been among the most popular on the platform, especially among younger users. Although trends constantly change, topics linked to personal curiosity and human relationships tend to rank very high in global search rankings. A red blood cell can travel through your entire body in only 20 seconds. Driven by the heart, it moves through arteries, capillaries, and veins, carrying oxygen to tissues and collecting carbon dioxide. This continuous journey happens thousands of times a day inside the human circulatory system. There is an Adidas shoe store in Amsterdam that is shaped like a giant shoebox. Its striking design makes it a tourist attraction, combining creative architecture with the brand's visual identity. This type of concept is part of marketing strategies that aim to offer memorable visual experiences to visitors. The largest ball pit in the world was installed at the Shangri-La Hotel in China in 2013. It measures 82 feet by 39 feet and contains around 1 million colored balls. The battery of the famous Nokia 3310 lasted so long that you could make a 55-hour call without it shutting off. In reality, the long battery life was not because it had a super battery, but because the phone consumed almost no energy. The word taxi means taxi in 13 languages. This happens because the term spread internationally from the word taximeter, the device that measures the fare of the trip. Over time, many languages adopted a very similar form of the word to refer to this type of transportation. Bull shark embryos fight each other in their mother's womb until only one survivor remains, and that is the shark that is born. This phenomenon is known as intrauterine cannibalism and ensures that the strongest individual has a greater chance of survival in a demanding marine environment from the very beginning. Crows are the only birds that can reconcile with members of their own species after fighting in order to avoid future conflicts. Actor Vincent D'Onofrio holds the record for the most weight gained to portray a role. He gained 70 pounds to play Private Pyle in the movie Full Metal Jacket. 1 out of every 10 known species of animals and plants in the world lives in the Amazon rainforest. This enormous biodiversity is due to its warm climate, abundant rainfall, and vast ecosystems. In addition, many scientists believe that thousands of species remain undiscovered in this region. The panda is the national animal of China. In fact, every panda in the world is property of China. If you see one outside the country, it is simply on loan. These agreements usually involve conservation programs and international cooperation to protect the species. In addition, zoos that receive them often pay annual fees and participate in research aimed at improving their reproduction and survival. To lift a house using balloons, like in the scene from the movie Up, it would require around 50 million helium-filled balloons. The grammar pedantry syndrome is a form of obsessive-compulsive disorder in which those who have it feel the need to correct every grammatical error they see. Although it is not an official clinical diagnosis, it describes a real behavior associated with the need for order and precision in language. Oil does not entirely come from dinosaurs. It is actually composed of fossil remains of microbes and other plants and animals that lived millions of years ago, even before dinosaurs. This belief spread because one of the first oil companies used a dinosaur as its mascot. A study from Harvard University stated that not having friends harms your health in the same way that being a smoker would. Research on social isolation has found that chronic loneliness is associated with a higher risk of cardiovascular disease, depression, and premature mortality. Some analyses compare its impact to factors such as smoking several cigarettes a day, highlighting the importance of maintaining strong social bonds. Parachutes have a hole at the top that is used for better control. Older parachutes did not have it. This small opening, called a vent, allows some of the air to escape in a controlled way, which reduces oscillation and instability during descent and makes landing safer and more predictable. There is a mattress called the Cuddle Mattress that is specifically designed to give you a place to put your arm while sleeping, spooning, or hugging. Its design includes a space or channel that prevents uncomfortable pressure, improving sleep quality in that position. Many animal shelters have a rule against adopting out black cats near Halloween because most people do it impulsively and later fail to care for them properly. It is estimated that out of every 12 million spam emails sent, only one receives a response. This data comes from studies on large-scale phishing campaigns, where attackers need enormous volumes to obtain minimal results. Although the success rate is extremely low, the near-zero cost of sending them makes even a few responses profitable. More than 700 languages are spoken in Indonesia. This enormous linguistic diversity exists because the country is made up of thousands of islands and numerous ethnic groups. Although the official language is Indonesian, many communities continue using their local languages in daily life. The word font only refers to things like size, bold, and italics. The actual style of the letters is called a typeface. Although they are often confused in everyday use, in typography there is a technical difference between the two terms. In Australia, the most dangerous animals have not been tarantulas, sharks, or kangaroos. In fact, the ones that have caused the most injuries to people have been common farm animals such as horses and cows. Chewing gum has the same effectiveness in waking up the mind and is considered better for studying than caffeine, but no one knows why. The Chinese pink dolphin is pink because it has a large number of blood vessels close to the surface of its skin. This animal lives mainly in the Yangtze River, and its coloration can also intensify when it becomes excited or its body temperature increases, since blood circulation becomes more visible through the skin. Using paper towels to dry your hands after washing them reduces bacterial count by 45 to 60%. However, using a hot air dryer actually increases bacterial count by an average of 255%, since bacteria grow rapidly in a warm and humid environment. Sloths spend 15 to 18 hours sleeping and are known for being among the slowest animals. However, surprisingly, they are good swimmers. They can move 3 times faster in water. They usually do this when changing trees or when the jungle floods. Japanese people wear face masks not only to avoid catching or spreading illnesses, they also do it for fashion and to avoid conversations with other people. Elephants only have 4 teeth that can be replaced up to 6 times during their lives. These teeth are large molars that wear down while grinding grass, bark, and branches. When one wears out, another grows from behind and pushes it forward. Near the end of their lives, they no longer have replacements. This is a ship that transports ships transporting ships. I will let you think about that for a minute. These enormous vessels are designed to move other ships or maritime structures, showing how far modern naval engineering can scale. Some can partially submerge their decks to load platforms or entire ships, functioning as true floating ports in the middle of the ocean. Charles Chaplin was the first actor to appear on the cover of Time magazine in 1925. This was 2 years after the first issue was published. Yogi Bear and other Hanna-Barbera cartoon characters wore collars. They did it on purpose so the animators could work less. That way, they only had to draw the head in each frame when the characters were speaking. An inexperienced tourist placed his 1-month-old grandson in the X-ray machine used to scan luggage. The baby was taken to the hospital, but fortunately, he did not receive a dangerous amount of radiation. Only 2% of the Australian population lives within that yellow area. In fact, the vast majority of the population lives within about 31 miles of the coast. This is because the interior of the country is mostly arid and less habitable, concentrating people in coastal regions. On Mackinac Island in Michigan, United States, all motor vehicles are banned, including cars, and people usually travel by bicycle or carriage. However, in 2019, this tradition was broken when then Vice President Mike Pence visited with a convoy of armored vehicles and even a helicopter. Coins that have some manufacturing defect are usually worth much more than their face value. If it is a significant defect, they can be worth much more to collectors. The Australian Graham Barker has been saving all the dirt and lint he finds in his belly button every day since 1984 and keeps it all in storage jars. The human hearing range is about 20 to 20,000 hertz. If it were lower than 20, we would be able to hear the movement of our own muscles. We could also perceive internal body vibrations, which would likely be uncomfortable or even disturbing. A Formula One car costs an average of $15.5 million. The most expensive component is the engine, but parts like the front wing, which often breaks and can be replaced during a race, cost approximately $150,000. The last movie rented at a Blockbuster before it officially closed its doors in 2013 was ironically called This Is the End. The number of cane toads in Australia reached a record of 200 million in 2006. The army was deployed to contain the plague of these poisonous amphibians. There are so many restaurants in New York City that you could eat at a different place every day for 12 years and never visit the same place twice. This reflects the city's enormous culinary diversity, where cuisines from all over the world coexist, from small family-run spots to internationally recognized fine dining restaurants. Llamas are used as guards for sheep herds against coyote attacks. Even a single llama can protect an entire herd and scare away or even fight a coyote. They are truly very brave. The directors of the movie Avengers: Infinity War, the Russo brothers, paid tribute to their series Arrested Development. In that series, there is a character named Tobias Funke, who paints himself blue because he auditions to be an understudy in the Blue Man Group. In Infinity War, Tobias appears as one of the collector's items and can be seen briefly behind Gamora in a scene. Skunks can spray their odor up to 9 feet away, leaving their victim with watery eyes and choking. The 4 ghosts in the game Pac-Man are programmed to behave differently. Blinky, the red ghost, chases you. Pinky, the pink ghost, tries to position itself in front of Pac-Man. Inky, the blue ghost, attempts to position itself in a similar way, and Clyde, the orange ghost, moves randomly. The first email was sent in 1971, and it was sent to the computer next to it. Today, more than 300 billion emails are sent daily. The first president of Zimbabwe, President Banana, Canaan Sodindo Banana, enacted a law that prohibited people from making fun of his name. In the past, it was believed that animal blood had special powers, and it was smeared on statues of Norse gods. People who participated in these rituals also liked to bathe in the blood. Clinomania is the excessive desire to stay in bed all day. Although it is not always a formal clinical term, it can be associated with extreme fatigue, stress, or emotional states that make a person avoid daily activities. In some cases, it may also be related to sleep disorders or mental health issues. So if it is persistent, seeking professional guidance is usually recommended. Michael Birch, the founder of the social network Bebo, sold it to AOL for $850 million in 2008, and 5 years later, he owned it again. He bought it back from AOL for only $1 million. Napoleon Bonaparte and Benjamin Franklin were at some point defeated by a chess-playing robot that traveled around the world, challenging and beating beginners and chess masters. In reality, that robot was just a man in disguise. What is funny is that now a real robot could easily beat that robot man. In ancient Egypt, some pharaohs had their servants fan wine during the night to help cool it, since they did not have refrigeration methods like those of today. This process allowed the liquid to lose some heat before being served. The baobab is a genus of tree found in Madagascar, whose trunk can store up to 31,700 gallons of water. This ability allows it to survive long periods of drought, acting as a natural reservoir that makes it a symbol of resilience in arid regions. In addition, its trunk is spongy and fibrous, which facilitates water storage and allows it to withstand extreme conditions for many years. During the Victorian era, special mustache cups were popular, designed with guards to keep mustaches from getting wet while drinking, but they later went out of fashion. Manufacturing and distributing phone books consumes more than 600,000 tons of paper per year, even though almost no one uses them anymore. Birds can release gas if they wanted to, but they do not need to, and usually prefer not to. Their digestive system is designed differently from that of many mammals, so they produce very little gas during digestion. In addition, food usually passes quickly through their bodies. A leopon is a hybrid animal resulting from the cross between a male leopard and a lioness. These cases are extremely rare and usually occur in captivity, since in the wild, both species do not typically meet or reproduce with each other. Documented specimens show characteristics of both animals, such as spots and an intermediate build, although they do not form stable populations and are not considered a natural species. According to a scientific study, the catchiest pop song is Wannabe by the Spice Girls. On average, people recognize it in 2.3 seconds, while the average for other popular songs is 5 seconds. Owners of personalized license plates in Uganda had their taxes increased to almost triple. They will have to pay $5,992 instead of $1,498. At 62,996 feet above sea level, you would suffocate no matter how much air you inhale, because the liquid that moistens the lungs begins to evaporate at body temperature. This point is known as the Armstrong limit. At such low atmospheric pressure, the fluids of the body begin to boil, so humans need pressurized suits to survive. Every year, the Netherlands sends 20,000 tulip bulbs to Canada to thank them for their help during World War II. This gesture has been maintained as a tradition since the liberation of the country and symbolizes the close historical relationship between the two nations. Elephants do not have heels. It is as if they are always standing on their tiptoes, supported by the front part of their feet, while the back part is only fat. Just 1 year after humans arrived on the moon in 1969, people lost interest in space exploration, to the point that almost 90% of those surveyed did not remember the name of Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon. Depression can make us dream up to 4 times more than normal. This is related to changes in REM sleep, the phase in which most dreams occur. People with depression often enter this phase faster and remain in it longer during the night. The island of Okinawa in Japan has more than 450 people who live beyond 100 years and is known as the healthiest place on Earth. This phenomenon has been linked to its balanced diet, constant physical activity, and strong social bonds, factors that contribute to greater longevity. In 1993, an inventor in South Korea created a prototype autonomous car that used a computer placed in the passenger seat. It successfully drove itself from the city of Seoul to Busan without any incidents. However, neither the industry nor the government supported it. Once a guide dog named Roselle helped her blind owner go down 78 flights of stairs. It took them an hour to descend, but they made it out safely and nothing happened to them. In 1902, lightning struck the Eiffel Tower and damaged the last 328 feet of the famous structure. The discharge mainly affected the upper section, which at that time was partly made of wood and lighter materials. After the incident, the section was rebuilt and the lightning protection system was improved. An elephant weighs less than the tongue of a blue whale. The tongue of this enormous animal can weigh several tons and is so large that it can be comparable to the weight of an adult elephant, reflecting the impressive size of the blue whale. The tradition of biting Olympic medals and biting metal in general comes from long ago, when this test was used to determine whether something was truly made of gold. Since gold is highly malleable, teeth leave marks on it. If it was not pure gold, you could break your teeth. Approximately 20% of technology company founders are immigrants, even though immigrants make up only 4% of the total population. Every year, thousands of letters arrive in Jerusalem addressed to God, and afterward, no one knows exactly what is done with them. Many are sent to the Western Wall, where people place written messages between the stones. When the spaces fill up, the notes are carefully collected and buried in a Jewish cemetery as sacred objects. There are 7 different types of twins: identical, fraternal, semi-identical, mirror image, mixed chromosome, superfetation, and superfecundation. Each type arises from different forms of embryonic development, resulting in genetic variations and particular physical characteristics. In 2018, a woman accidentally paid 7,709 Swiss francs as a tip for a coffee. She entered her PIN instead of the amount she intended to pay. Later, when she called the cafe to clarify the payment, no one answered because it had already closed. This is a photo of the last thylacine, or Tasmanian tiger, in captivity, and the last of its species. It was taken at a zoo in Tasmania in 1933. Most antibiotics are made from bacteria. Many were discovered in microorganisms that produce substances to defend themselves from other microbes in their environment. One famous example is penicillin, obtained from a fungus, while other common antibiotics come from soil bacteria of the genus Streptomyces. Due to rationing during World War II, cocoa was scarce in Italy, so a baker created an alternative chocolate spread that would later be called Nutella. This initial version mixed hazelnuts with cocoa to extend the flavor, giving rise to one of the most popular products in the world. Mozart wrote the fragment Come Scoglio from the opera Così fan tutte with very pronounced harmonic changes on purpose, because he disliked the soprano who sang it and wanted her to move her head like a chicken while singing due to the technique required. In the 70s, the United States government tried to create an artificial coral reef using pieces of concrete and used tires. The reef ended up being a major ecological disaster because the tires eroded and were thrown by hurricanes onto natural reefs. The reason some nocturnal flying insects are so attracted to light is because they believe it is the light of the moon. That light was used to navigate when humans had not yet invented artificial lighting. Doctors' poor handwriting kills more than 7,000 people and injures more than 1,500,000 people annually due to the administration of incorrect medications. This problem has led to the implementation of electronic prescriptions and digital systems in many countries, reducing errors and improving patient safety in medical settings. Cats have 2 different sets of vocal cords, one for meowing and another for purring. The ones they use for purring are the same type used by big cats, such as lions, to roar. Elmo from Sesame Street once testified before the United States Congress in 2022. Elmo knows where you live. In 2013, Chinese scientists managed to grow a human tooth from stem cells taken from urine. The cells were reprogrammed and combined with dental tissue to form a structure similar to a tooth. The experiment was tested in mice and showed that these cells can help regenerate tissues. This is not a painting. It is a completely real photograph that has not been retouched or edited in any way. What you are seeing are camel thorn trees in Namib Knocklift Park in Namibia. The background is a sand dune and the ground is blue due to the shadow of the morning sun. French writer Georges Perec wrote an entire novel without using the letter E, which is the most used letter in the French language. Later, he wrote another one in which the only vowel he used was E. In the Spanish translation, they chose not to use the letter A, but they had to change quite a lot. There is a symbol used to emphasize a sarcastic phrase or message. It looks like a spiral with a dot inside, and it is called the Sark mark. And I think we desperately need it. It is something that would do the internet a lot of good. I hope it comes back into fashion. It is almost impossible to listen to the radio in a submarine. Seawater blocks most radio waves, so signals do not easily penetrate to great depths. For that reason, submarines usually receive messages only when they are near the surface or through extremely low frequencies designed to pass through the ocean. The University of Victoria in British Columbia, Canada, offers a course on the science of Batman. It uses the Dark Knight to explain the human condition and the limitations of the human mind and body, analyzing which aspect of the character could be possible in real life. This type of course combines popular culture with science to make learning more engaging and accessible to students. There is a street in Poland called Obi-Wan Kenobi Street, in honor of the Jedi Master from the Star Wars movies. The name was proposed by a neighborhood council member who is clearly a fan, and it was approved in 2004. It has been visited by thousands of fans and even actors who have appeared in the films. The Persians actually invented bagpipes, not the Scots. Wind instruments with an airbag have existed for thousands of years in regions of the Middle East, and there are ancient records in Persia and other nearby cultures. Over time, the instrument spread throughout Europe, and it was in Scotland where it adopted its most well-known form and became a national symbol. Every 5 days, a new skyscraper is built in China. During the last decades, the country has experienced one of the largest construction booms in the world. Many cities have grown rapidly and have built hundreds of towers more than 492 feet tall for housing, offices, and shopping centers. The shortest distance between Europe and Africa is only 14.3 miles at the Strait of Gibraltar. For a long time, there have been discussions about building a bridge or tunnel to connect the two continents, but nothing has been done so far. There is a museum of bad art. It is located in Somerville, Massachusetts, United States, and as its name suggests, inside there is a collection of art that is considered very bad. Ken, Barbie's boyfriend, has the last name Carson. The character's full name is Kenneth Carson, and he was introduced by the company Mattel in 1961, 2 years after the launch of Barbie. Over time, he became one of the best-known characters in the doll line. The reason whips make that characteristic sound is because, when cracked, the tip reaches a speed greater than the speed of sound, creating a small sonic boom similar to that of supersonic jets. Cleopatra had a special red lipstick made for her from a mixture of ground ants and cochineal insects that produced the perfect shade of red. Out of the 200 countries that are members of the United Nations, 171 have been invaded by Great Britain at some point in history. Suzanne Collins, the author of the Hunger Games books, also wrote Clarissa Explains It All. Retired basketball player and actor Shaquille O'Neal owns 150 car washes. Sunflowers can be used to clean radioactive waste. Their stems and leaves absorb and store contaminants. This is also the reason why the sunflower is the international symbol of nuclear disarmament. When dolphins sleep, half of their brain remains active. They do this so they do not drown. The woman who rented the garage to Larry Page and Sergey Brin, where they created Google in 1998, was Susan Wojcicki, or however you pronounce that, sorry Susan, who is currently the chief executive officer of YouTube. In October of 2008, inflation in Zimbabwe reached the record of 231 million%. Titanic 2 was announced as a modern replica of the RMS Titanic, promoted by the company Blue Star Line. Although it was originally planned to set sail in 2016, the project has faced numerous delays and pauses. Over the years, new plans and tentative dates have been presented, but so far its construction and official launch have not been completed. During the Soviet Union era, a KGB agent was assigned to writer George Orwell to spy on him. Years later, this spy wrote a book detailing how he lost faith in communism forever after reading Orwell's works. China produces 68% of all the watermelons in the world. That is 20 times more than the second largest producer of this fruit. Thanks to its enormous agricultural territory and high domestic demand, the country overwhelmingly dominates the global market. Provinces with warm climates and intensive irrigation systems allow massive harvests each year, consolidating its leadership in global production. Brazil nuts are so radioactive that a small portion could trigger alarms in a nuclear plant. This happens because the trees naturally absorb radium from the soil through their very deep roots. Although they contain more radioactivity than many other foods, the amount is still very small and does not represent a health risk. In 1996, DC and Marvel Comics published a crossover series where Wolverine and Batman became a single character called Dark Claw, or Logan Wayne. This story was part of the Amalgam Comics event, in which several heroes from both publishers were merged, creating hybrid versions with combined abilities and origins. In 2006, The International Gymnastics Federation changed the way routines are scored. Instead of being scored from 0 to 10, there are now two separate scores, execution and difficulty, which are then added together. This ended the tradition of the perfect 10 score. Elastic Girl's motorcycle in The Incredibles 2 is completely electric, so it does not harm the environment, in case you were wondering. At one point in production, it was considered that Elastic Girl would transform into the motorcycle with her powers, but I think it turned out better this way. Ants greet each other when they pass by other ants with the movement of their heads. In reality, they touch with their antennae to exchange chemical signals and recognize whether they belong to the same colony. This brief contact also allows them to share information about food, routes, and nearby dangers. There's a Pizza Hut perfume that smells like a fresh Pizza Hut pizza box opening when you spray it. That is one way to impress on a date. This type of product was released as a promotional novelty and became popular for how unusual its scent is. It was introduced in limited quantities as part of a marketing campaign, showing how brands use creative ideas to capture public attention. The word idiot comes from ancient Greek and was used in Athens, where it originally meant a person who did not care about or participate in public and political affairs. It is believed that the deep web, the place you should never go, is 400 or even 500 times larger than the surface internet. Before the queen put on her shoes, a member of her staff wore them first to soften them and make sure they were comfortable. This was done because the queen spent many hours standing during official events, and this way they avoided new shoes causing her discomfort. Skittles and gummy candies contain insect cocoons, which are used to coat the candies and give them that special shine known as shellac. This material comes from insect secretions and is used in small amounts to give them a glossy finish and protect their surface. Shellac, also called confectioner's glaze, has been used for decades in food and other products for its ability to form a protective coating that is safe for consumption. The resurgence of the Apple industry in the last decade is largely due to McDonald's, which currently sells so many apples that they represent a percentage of global Apple sales. Mexico was at war with France in 1838 because they refused to pay 600,000 pesos to a French chef after some police officers looted his pastry shop. The conflict is now known as the Pastry War. According to research, the story of a single individual in need motivates charity more than statistics about millions. This phenomenon is known as the identifiable victim effect. People tend to feel more empathy when they can imagine or know a specific person, while large numbers feel more abstract and emotionally distant. Ben & Jerry's has a real cemetery where they bury all their discontinued ice cream flavors. Each grave includes a humorous description of the flavor, turning it into a curious way of honoring products that are no longer sold. This cemetery is located in Vermont and has become popular among fans who visit the site. Although people rarely consume it, the white part of watermelons that separates the rind from the flesh is just as healthy and nutritious as the red part. The domain www.youtube.com was registered on February 14, 2005. The registration took place shortly before the site began operating publicly and marked the beginning of a platform that would transform the way video is consumed and shared on the internet. Months later, the first video would be uploaded, ushering in a new digital era. A kick from an ostrich can kill a human and can even kill a lion. Their legs are extremely powerful and have a large, sharp claw that can cause deep wounds. When they feel threatened, they can deliver forward kicks with great speed and force. Each year, tourists throw around 1,100,000 euros into the Trevi Fountain in Rome, which the city uses to fund a supermarket for the poor. This money is regularly collected and allocated to social programs and food assistance. The tradition of tossing coins is associated with the wish to return to Rome, making the fountain one of the most visited spots in the city. When the Calypso song Rum and Coca-Cola from 1945 was going to be released in the United States, Pepsi offered a large amount of money to the composer to change the name to Rum and Pepsi-Cola. However, Coca-Cola made a counteroffer with even more money and won. It is scientifically proven that being in love makes you a much less productive person. Some studies in psychology have observed that the early stages of falling in love can increase distraction, reduce concentration, and raise levels of intrusive thoughts about a partner. However, in the long term, stable and satisfying relationships are usually associated with greater emotional well-being, which can also support performance. Some inhabitants of central China have been using dinosaur bones as medicine, believing they belonged to dragons. For centuries, these fossils were ground up to prepare traditional remedies. Many of these remains came from fossil-rich deposits that today are important paleontological sites. A tablespoon of average cake frosting has less fat, calories, and sugar than a tablespoon of Nutella. This is because Nutella contains a concentrated mix of sugar, oils, and hazelnuts, making it more energy-dense compared to many common frostings. Some police forces in certain countries use long-range acoustic devices that emit sound waves of up to 137 decibels to disperse crowds. The sounds they produce cause nausea and vertigo. In general, people tend to read 10% slower on a screen than on paper. Various studies on digital reading have found that lighting, contrast, and continuous scrolling of text can affect speed and comprehension. Approximately 50% of Asian people have difficulty metabolizing alcohol because they lack an enzyme in the liver necessary to process it. There is a 49-year-old man named Dalton Getty who has been creating artwork on pencil tips for 25 years. His sculptures are so small and detailed that they require special tools and great precision, sometimes taking months to complete a single piece. The ingredients used to make the most exclusive perfumes are actually very cheap. The average cost to produce the liquid in a $150 perfume bottle is only $1.50. In 2010, a couple bought the town of Wakanda in Washington, United States, for only $360,000. It came with a cafe, a post office, a gas station, a 4-bedroom house, and even its own zip code. A bargain. In 2014, Christians in South Korea placed a Christmas tree that could be seen from North Korea, which responded by calling it an instrument of psychological warfare and threatened to bombard it. The popular Canadian beer Molson Canadian distributed beer fridges across Europe that only open for Canadians by simply scanning their passports. In fact, those same fridges were made available at the Winter Olympics in Sochi that year. Physicist, inventor, theologian, mathematician, and alchemist Isaac Newton went through a period where he studied occultism and, according to his predictions, concluded that the end of the world would occur in 2060, after which humanity would enter an era of divine peace. In South Korea, 68-hour work weeks have just been banned for being considered inhumane. Now the maximum they can make a person work is 52 hours. Koreans are among the people who work the most hours in the world. Dead insects spoil very quickly. For that reason, they must be eaten alive or freshly dead, and jumping insects have to be cooled or frozen before cooking, so they do not jump out of the frying pan. This is a painting within a painting, being painted by the painter who is painting the painting, who is also painting himself. I will let you think about that. This type of composition is an artistic technique that plays with perception and self-reference. It is known as mise en abîme and has been used by artists to create complex visual effects and reflect on the nature of art and reality. More than 700,000 bottles of Tabasco sauce are sold every day, and all of them are made in the same factory in Louisiana, United States. In fact, this sauce has nothing to do with the state of Tabasco in Mexico. The logo of the New Zealand Air Force is a kiwi, a bird that does not fly. The Royal New Zealand Air Force adopted this bird as a national emblem, since the kiwi is a symbol of the country's identity. Although it may seem ironic for an Air Force, it represents pride and belonging in New Zealand. The escape artist Joe Burris attempted the trick of being buried alive in 1990, but something went wrong, and he died crushed by the cement that was poured on top of the box where he was. Actor Ken Jeong originally wanted to be a doctor, but his wife told him to pursue his dream of becoming a comedian after she was diagnosed with cancer. So he did. In fact, he graduated in medicine and practiced as a physician before fully dedicating himself to acting, achieving recognition in comedy while his wife overcame the illness. To determine the age of fish, a method similar to the one used with trees is used. Fish scales have a growth ring marking each year of life. A robot called Bento was deemed too dangerous when it competed on the show Robot Wars, because when it won, pieces of its opponents would go flying and hit the walls of the arena. They had to disqualify it, and as consolation, they gave it the title of co-champion. The mummy of the pharaoh Ramses II was deteriorating, so it was sent to Paris in 1974 to be treated for a fungal infection. A passport was used for the mummy, and its occupation was listed as deceased king. 1/4 of the world's hazelnut production each year is used to make Nutella. That is approximately 10,000 tons of hazelnuts every year. It has been proven that the more features a person's phone has, the more time they will spend in the bathroom, according to a study that was conducted. There is a flower in the tropical rainforests of Central and South America that stands out for the striking shape of its red bracts, which resemble lips. This feature helps attract pollinators, such as butterflies and hummingbirds. These bracts are not true petals, but modified leaves that protect the actual flower, which is small and located inside. When a person smokes, nicotine reaches the brain in only 7 seconds. In comparison, alcohol takes 6 minutes to reach the brain. The minions only have 3 fingers, in case you had not noticed. These animated characters from the Despicable Me franchise were designed with simple shapes and exaggerated features to make them more expressive and easier to animate. Their 3 fingers help maintain that cartoonish and distinctive style that made them so recognizable in film. Before boxing rules were regulated, Jack Jones and Patrick Tunney had a fight where they kept hitting each other without stopping for 276 rounds. Most of the bread sold in the United States as whole wheat bread is actually just white bread dyed brown. The pupils of octopuses, like those of goats, are rectangular. There could be up to 6 billion planets similar to Earth in our galaxy, with the same size and a similar distance from a sun-like star. These are ideal conditions for life. The scientific name of the western lowland gorilla is gorilla, gorilla, gorilla. In biological classification, the genus is gorilla, the species is gorilla, gorilla, and the western lowland subspecies repeats the name, following the rules of zoological nomenclature. This type of repetition is known as a trinomial name and is not very common, which makes it especially curious. It was common in chariot races pulled by horses in ancient Rome and Greece for many riders and horses to die. People enjoyed watching the accidents. Contrary to popular belief, washing your hands with warm water does not kill bacteria better than washing them with cold water. This is because the water would need to be boiling to kill bacteria. The most important factor is the use of soap and friction when washing properly. Scrubbing your hands for at least 20 seconds helps remove dirt and microorganisms, which are then rinsed away by the water. The Eiffel Tower in Paris is currently one of the most important monuments in France. But there was a time when it was used only for advertising for more than 10 years. The car company Citroën displayed giant letters on the tower. Before erasers existed, people used breadcrumbs to erase things written in pencil. Soft bread could absorb graphite without damaging the paper too much, making it a practical and inexpensive solution. It was not until the 18th century that natural rubber erasers began to become popular, proving to be much more durable and effective. King Harold II of England died in battle in the year 1066 from an arrow that struck him directly in the eye. Iceland has no army and has been recognized as the most peaceful country in the world for more than 15 consecutive years, according to the Global Peace Index. In recent comparisons, countries such as New Zealand, Ireland, Denmark, and Austria also tend to rank among the top positions. Iceland relies on civilian security forces and defense agreements with allies, allowing it to maintain security without a standing army. The Night Watch by Rembrandt is one of the most recognizable paintings in the world and is known for being very large, measuring 11.5 feet by 14.1 feet. However, what many people do not know is that it used to be even larger. In 1715, parts were cut off so it could fit inside Amsterdam's City Hall. The cut even removed 2 characters. The company Foxconn that manufactures the iPhone has managed to reduce its employees from 100,000 to only 50,000, thanks to the robots it has introduced. Excess hair over the entire body is called hypertrichosis. Very few people suffer from this condition, which is also called werewolf syndrome. In the state of Nevada, public intoxication is not only explicitly legal, but it is illegal for any city or town to pass a law that makes it illegal. This rule aims to treat alcoholism more as a health issue than a crime, avoiding penalties for simply being intoxicated. Before getting the role of Mobius in the series Loki, Owen Wilson knew almost nothing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so Tom Hiddleston, who has played Loki for 10 years, had to give him a lesson on the mythology and history of his character. Some of their conversations were even recorded and used in scenes where they talk. The creators of the movie Despicable Me admitted that they only created the minions to make people like Gru, the supervillain protagonist of the film, more. Kangaroos cover themselves with their own saliva to maintain a moderate temperature under the intense sun of Australia. Your nose is connected to the memory center of your brain. That is why smells trigger some of the most powerful memories. The olfactory system has a direct connection to areas related to emotions, which explains why certain scents can instantly evoke vivid memories. In 2011, archaeologists working at the site where the Twin Towers once stood in New York discovered an 18th century ship that had once been used by merchants. Bananas are slightly curved because they grow trying to point toward the sun. This phenomenon is called negative geotropism, or phototropism, and it occurs when the fruit, which initially hangs downward, begins to curve upward, seeking light as it develops. As it ripens, that response to the light stimulus gives it its characteristic shape. The first automated teller machine was installed in a bank in New York in 1939, but people did not like it, and it was removed 6 months later. Automated teller machines only became popular about 25 years later. Indian households, specifically Indian women, own about 18,000 tons of gold in jewelry. To put that into perspective, it is more than double the gold held by the United States Federal Reserve, and about 11% of all the gold in the world. This metal holds deep cultural and economic value in India, especially in weddings and celebrations, where it is considered a symbol of wealth, security, and family heritage. In Finland, they found a rock that appears to be perfectly balanced on a curved base, as if by magic. It is called Kumakivi, which means strange rock. No one knows whether it was placed there or formed naturally. There is a robot factory in Japan that is so automated that it can operate without supervision for periods of 30 days. The robots build up to 50 robots each day, and who knows what they are planning while no one is supervising them. In the 19th century, there were people who bought mummies and held parties where they unwrapped them. These gatherings were popular among some collectors and curious individuals in Europe. They were considered an exotic spectacle related to Egyptology, which was fashionable after several archaeological expeditions. The Lord of the Rings is not a trilogy. In fact, it is a single work that was divided and published in 3 volumes between 1954 and 1955 for economic reasons. Its author conceived it as a continuous story, but its length and printing costs led to it being split, which ended up defining the way it is known today by most readers. As part of an experiment, Japanese astronaut Koichi Wakata wore the same underwear for 1 month aboard the International Space Station, which was designed to be antibacterial even if astronauts exercised daily. In many countries, the Navy is once again teaching celestial navigation, meaning navigating by the stars, to know where they are sailing. They're doing this in order to respond to potential cyber attacks on navigation systems, proof that, little by little, we are going back to the Middle Ages. A tribe in Sudan consumes a drink made with giraffe liver and bone marrow. It is believed to contain several psychoactive components. There is a skyscraper in New York City with no windows. It is an extreme example of brutalist architecture and is located at number 33 Thomas Street. The building houses telecommunications infrastructure and data centers, so it does not require natural lighting. In the movie Casino, the money Robert De Niro threw was not prop money. It was real $20 and $50 bills. During filming, everyone present had to be supervised so they would not take any. Donnie Yen, the actor who appears as a monk in Star Wars Rogue One, was once leaving a nightclub in Hong Kong with his girlfriend when he was attacked by a gang that had been harassing him earlier. 8 members of the gang had to be hospitalized after the altercation, and Donnie did not have a single scratch. The Sydney Opera House took 14 years to be built. Construction began in 1959, and it officially opened in 1973. The design by the Danish architect Jorn Utzon became one of the most recognizable buildings in the world. If the human eye were a digital camera, it would have a resolution of about 576 megapixels. This figure is a theoretical estimate, since human vision does not function like a traditional camera, but it helps illustrate the incredible level of detail the eye can perceive. In addition, the brain processes visual information in real time, continuously adjusting focus, light, and motion in a way that no digital camera can exactly replicate. Poveglia Island in Italy is considered one of the most haunted places in the world. It was a war zone, a place for plague victims, and a psychiatric hospital. There have been projects to rehabilitate it and make it a tourist destination, but none have been carried out. Folk singer Willie Nelson released an album in 1992 made specifically to pay the debt he had with the tax office. The album was called The IRS Tapes, Who Will Buy My Memories? The IRS is the United States Tax Office. Centipedes never have exactly 100 feet. They almost always have an odd number of legs. In reality, they have pairs of legs on each body segment, and the total usually varies between 30 and several hundred depending on the species. The name centipede is only a popular way to describe their appearance. Actor Dick Van Dyke, who is currently 95 years old, has been a fan of three-dimensional animation and effects for decades and has designed renders for his television shows on some occasions. In the 18th century, it was believed that there was an epidemic affecting young people who spent too much time reading books. It was classified as a dangerous illness and was called reader fever or reading mania. The stadium of the FC Vaduz team in Liechtenstein has a capacity of 7,000 people. Even though the city has a total population of only 5,000, it can also hold 20% of the country's entire population. The skin of a honey badger is extremely thick and resistant, which helps protect it from predator attacks in the wild. Thanks to this characteristic, it is known for its great bravery and for not being easily intimidated by other animals. In addition, its skin is loose enough to allow it to twist inside it and counterattack even when it is grabbed, further increasing its defensive ability. In 2016, Mozart sold more albums than artists such as Drake, Beyoncé, and Adele. This happened because Universal released a special 225 anniversary edition in a box containing 200 discs. Each one counted as 200. There are more than 10,000 underground nuclear shelters in Beijing, China, that were built during the Cold War. They were later sold as real estate, and currently more than 1 million people live in them. 50% of the caffeine you consume will be eliminated from your body within the first 5 hours after you drink it, but it will take a full day to remove it completely. This time is known as the half-life of caffeine. Factors such as age, metabolism, pregnancy, or certain medications can make the process faster or slower. Kurt Cobain married Courtney Love in pajamas. The ceremony took place in Hawaii in 1992, and he wore green pajamas because he did not have a proper suit at the time. It was a simple and improvised wedding, consistent with his relaxed and unconventional style. There is a method called tree shaping, in which trees are manipulated over months or years so their form changes and becomes works of art. The first glimpse of the far side of the moon was achieved in 1959, thanks to an image captured by the Soviet probe Luna 3. It was the first time humanity was able to observe the hidden face of the satellite, since the moon always shows the same side to Earth due to its synchronized rotation. The images were low resolution, but they marked a milestone in space exploration. In the city of Zhuji in China, 8 billion pairs of socks are made each year, 35% of the world's sock production. This is an underwater waterfall located off the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean and is caused by water and sand falling off the coastal shelf. In reality, it is an optical illusion created by currents that drag sediments, giving the appearance of a deep drop beneath the ocean. Catholic and Protestant areas in Northern Ireland are still separated by walls measuring 26.2 feet, which are called peace lines. The University of Paris existed for 820 years, from 1150 to 1970. It was closed because it was the main place where there were revolutionary students who almost overthrew the French government in 1968. The First World War officially ended on October 3, 2010. Although the fighting ended in 1918, some legal agreements took decades to resolve. On that day, Germany and Poland signed a final treaty that formally closed certain pending matters related to the war. Sweden recycles so efficiently that it actually has to import trash from Norway to feed its energy plants that convert waste into energy. This system allows it to generate electricity and heating, reducing the amount of waste in landfills and making the most of materials. In addition, much of the waste is incinerated in a controlled way with advanced filters, which minimizes emissions and contributes to a more sustainable energy model. On Christmas Island, located near Australia, there is an annual migration of more than 50 million crabs that gather on the beaches to reproduce. There are so many that it looks like a red carpet. Coffee does not actually dehydrate you. It can hydrate you almost as much as water. Although it contains caffeine, which has a mild diuretic effect, in people who consume it regularly, the body adapts and that effect is minimal. Since it is mostly made up of water, it contributes to daily fluid intake, as long as it is consumed in moderation. In a survival situation, if you drink seawater, it would cause dehydration and death in a short period of time. But if seawater is frozen, it can be less harmful, since it contains 10 times less salt because it separates at low temperatures. These are the Rainbow Mountains of Zhangye Dangxia in China. They are multicolored due to layers of densely packed minerals in the rock. Erosion and the passage of time have exposed these bands, creating a unique natural landscape that looks hand-painted. Gold has been extracted from the earth for more than 6,000 years. However, 75% of all gold that exists has been extracted since 1910. This is because extraction technology has improved. Once the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States took a Soviet space shuttle during the night, they dismantled it, studied its features, put it back together, and returned it without the Soviets noticing. The Hundred Years' War lasted 116 years. This conflict between England and France began in 1337 and ended in 1453. In reality, it was not a continuous war, but a series of campaigns and truces that stretched over more than a century. Real diamonds do not appear on X-rays. This is because they are made of carbon, a low-density element that allows X-rays to pass through. For that reason, they can be difficult to detect in this type of medical or security imaging. However, depending on the equipment and settings, they may create slight contrasts, so they do not always go completely unnoticed. Soccer player Cristiano Ronaldo gave his agent an entire Greek island as a wedding gift in 2015. It cost $3 million. Chocolate can help prevent teeth from wearing down. Parts of the cocoa seed can attack the bacteria that break down teeth. Some studies have found that compounds present in cacao, such as certain polyphenols, can inhibit the growth of bacteria related to cavities. However, this mainly applies to pure cacao, since the added sugar in many commercial chocolates can have the opposite effect. Nicolas Cage was the one who recommended that Johnny Depp enter the world of acting in the 1980s. The two met when Depp was still planning to dedicate himself to music. Cage encouraged him to try acting and put him in contact with his own agent, which eventually led Depp to get his first film roles. Only 1 to 2% of the entire world population are natural redheads. This trait is due to a specific genetic variation and is more common in regions of Northern Europe. In addition, red-haired people tend to have more sun-sensitive skin and higher vitamin D production. Nintendo Power Magazine once held a contest in which the winner would appear as an extra in a scene in the movie The Mask 2 with Jim Carrey. However, the movie was canceled. After learning this, Nintendo gave the winner $5,000 and any games they wanted as a consolation prize. The president of the soccer team, Real Madrid, did not want to sign Ronaldinho because, according to him, he was unattractive and did not help the company's brand image. Instead, they signed David Beckham because they believed he would be more profitable in Asia. Ronaldinho became a superstar at Barcelona and was once even given a standing ovation by Real Madrid fans. A rhinoceros beetle can lift 850 times its own weight. This enormous relative strength is due to its small size and the structure of its exoskeleton, which allows it to support large loads. If a human had a similar proportional strength, they could lift several tons without difficulty. There is a real sport called bonsai skydiving, which consists of throwing a parachute out of a plane and jumping after it. This extreme activity requires great precision and training, as the skydiver must reach and put on the equipment in mid-free fall before opening it. It is practiced only by experts and with strict safety measures, as any mistake can be extremely dangerous. Pole vault athlete Sergei Bubka had a contract that offered him $100,000 each time he broke the world record. So he came up with the idea of breaking the record 35 times. He increased it by only a few centimeters each time. Until 2008, Walmart de Mexico was still paying its employees with vouchers redeemable only in Walmart stores. Almost any domestic cat can run faster than Usain Bolt. A cat can reach speeds close to 30 miles per hour over short distances, while the Jamaican sprinter reached about 27 miles per hour in his world record. Their agility and acceleration allow them to react and move very quickly. The Hudson Bay area in Canada has less gravity than the rest of the Earth. Scientists do not know exactly why, but they have the hypothesis that it could have something to do with convection occurring in the Earth's mantle. Only 1,200 copies of Nirvana's debut single, Love Buzz, were made in 1988. Each of those records is currently worth thousands of dollars. In 2000, the founders of Google offered the company to Alta Vista for $1 million so they could leave it and continue their studies, but the offer was rejected. Today, Google is worth more than $100 billion. The names Olivia, Miranda, and Jessica were invented by William Shakespeare. They appeared for the first time in his works. Like if your name is one of those. Every year, the Prince of Liechtenstein invites the entire country to a party at his house, and everyone goes. About 30,000 people live in that country. During the London 2012 Olympic Games, 150,000 condoms were distributed among the athletes, about 15 for each one. Originally, Mickey Mouse was supposed to enter the public domain in the 1970s, but Disney spent millions of dollars to get the United States Congress to approve laws extending copyright duration. The last time was in 1998. Mickey's first appearance is expected to finally enter the public domain in 2024. Mexico sent 300,000 workers to farms and factories in the United States to help while the army was fighting alongside the Allies in World War II. The tires of a Bugatti Veyron cost $42,000 for a set. They last only 15 minutes at top speed. In 2007, violinist Joshua Bell conducted an experiment where he played on the street to see how much money he would earn and only managed to make $31 in a day. The day before, he performed a concert where tickets sold out at $100 each. Additionally, the violin he was playing was worth $3.5 million. To calculate the position of the space probe Voyager 1 at more than 12 billion miles away, you only need to use the first 15 digits of pi to get an accuracy of 1.5 inches. Easy. There is an apartment at the very top of the Eiffel Tower. It was built by Gustave Eiffel for personal use when he finished the tower in the 19th century. The small space had a living room, a piano, and a laboratory, and today it is preserved as a historical recreation that can be seen through a window on the upper level. Sahara means desert in Arabic, so when you say Sahara Desert, you are actually saying desert desert. John Wayne once beat Lassie the dog in a game of poker. Humpty Dumpty was not actually an egg. In the traditional rhyme where he first appeared, that is never mentioned, but people collectively accepted it because it was better for an egg to fall from the top of a wall than for a person to fall. The classics by Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey, are part of a story of 8 books. The other stories were lost forever over the years. King Charles V of France banned in 1367 that people wear shoes with a phallic shape. The bumblebee bat, also known as Kitty's hog-nosed bat, is the smallest bat in the world. It weighs about 0.07 ounces and fits easily in the palm of a hand. It lives in caves in Thailand and Myanmar, and its tiny size makes it especially vulnerable to habitat loss. It is possible to navigate YouTube in 75 languages. That covers 95% of the world's population. Fire extinguisher foam contains cow hooves. In some older types of firefighting foam, proteins obtained from animal byproducts such as horns or hooves were used because they helped form a thick layer that smothered the fire. Today, many modern formulas use synthetic compounds that perform the same function. Children have more than twice as many taste buds as adults, which causes them to experience flavors more intensely. That is why it is much easier for them to dislike something. People with blue or light-colored eyes can develop a greater dependence on alcohol than people with brown eyes. This has already been confirmed, but researchers still have no idea why it happens. Pluto is actually smaller than Russia. Its diameter is smaller than the width of Russian territory, highlighting how tiny this dwarf planet is within the solar system, despite having been considered a planet for many years. Its diameter is approximately 1,470 miles, while Russia stretches more than 5,500 miles from east to west. Fewer than 50 Apple I computers from 1976 are known to still exist. They can be worth more than $1 million. It is possible to use Cheetos as a match or as a torch due to their high oil content, and not because they are made of plastic. Since they are made from cornmeal and vegetable oils, they can burn for a few seconds if lit. That combustion is due to the concentrated fat, which acts as fuel, not to synthetic materials in their composition. Bacteria can have viruses and get sick. These viruses are called bacteriophages and specialize in infecting bacteria. They attach to the surface and inject their genetic material, forcing the bacterium to produce new viruses until the cell finally bursts and releases thousands of copies. The company Terrafugia introduced the concept of a flying vehicle called TFX, designed as a car capable of vertical takeoff and landing with a high degree of automation. Although it was initially projected to be available around 2015, development has faced numerous technical and regulatory challenges. In 1979, pieces of the Skylab space station fell in the city of Esperance in Australia, and shortly afterward, NASA was sent a receipt with a $400 fine for littering, and they had to pay it. According to a survey conducted among airline pilots, 56% of them admitted to having fallen asleep at some point while flying. The data comes from studies on fatigue in commercial aviation, where long shifts and time zone changes can affect rest. That is why there are strict protocols, cockpits with more than one pilot, and rules about maximum flight hours to reduce risks. Since 2008, hamsters have been banned in Vietnam. The restriction was imposed after many animals were introduced as pets, and some authorities feared they might escape and reproduce quickly. There were also concerns about possible diseases, so their import and trade became restricted. Coca leaves are still used by Coca-Cola to this day. The Stepan Company in New Jersey extracts the cocaine from the leaves and delivers the processed leaves to Coca-Cola to be used in its beverages. These leaves are previously decocainized and are used only as a flavoring, maintaining the formula without psychoactive effects and under strict legal regulations in the United States. French wines grow from American roots. In 1870, there was a plague that devastated grape fields in France. As a result, they had to import grape plants from Missouri, which were more resistant. There is a baby in Colombia named Netflix de Jesus Rodriguez Restrepo, and I think we already know what his parents were doing when he was conceived. It took J.R.R. Tolkien 12 years to write the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He worked on the story between the late 1930s and the late 1940s, revising maps, languages, and the complete history of Middle-earth. The work was finally published in 3 volumes between 1954 and 1955. If the sun were reduced to the size of a white blood cell, the Milky Way would be the size of the United States. This comparison helps visualize the enormous scale of our galaxy, which contains hundreds of billions of stars separated by immense distances within a vast, almost empty space. In ancient Greece, they had a process called ostracism, in which each year citizens could vote for the politician they considered most destructive to democracy. The chosen person was exiled from Athens for 10 years. Pit bull dogs are among the most affectionate and least aggressive breeds that exist. They are only aggressive when trained for dogfighting or for security. Evil laugh and lols were added to the Oxford Online Dictionary in 2012. These expressions reflect how internet language influences everyday speech. Many of them first appeared in forums, chats, and video games before being officially recognized by dictionaries. Contrary to popular belief, cracking your knuckles does not damage bones or cause arthritis. The sound you hear is simply the popping of gas bubbles. However, if done excessively, it can cause damage to tissues. Some studies have found that doing it frequently may cause slight inflammation or reduce grip strength over time, although without serious effects on joint health. The highest denomination banknote ever circulated was the 100 trillion pengo bill from Hungary. This was caused by hyperinflation after World War II. Shortly afterward, a new currency with fewer zeros was introduced. NASA wanted to send Big Bird from Sesame Street into space on the Space Shuttle Challenger so that children would become interested in space, but the costume was too large and took up too much space. So instead, they sent teacher Krista McAuliffe. As we know, the Challenger exploded minutes after takeoff. In 1993, there was a proposal to build an advertisement in space that would appear the same size as the moon from the surface of the Earth, but it was never carried out because of lack of budget. It also inspired a law to prohibit space advertising. Pigeons live in their nests from birth until they are 30 days old. At that point, they already look like adult pigeons. That is why you never see baby pigeons on the street. Jason Brown, one of the highest-paid NFL players in 2009, quit after earning $25 million to become a farmer and donate his food. Astronomers using the Hubble Space Telescope have discovered a deep blue planet 63 light-years away where it rains glass. In this extreme world, winds reach enormous speeds, causing glass particles to move horizontally at high velocity. 1 ton of computers contains more gold than 17 tons of soil from a gold mine, which is where gold is normally extracted. Nikola Tesla went to the park daily to feed the pigeons. He later realized that one of the pigeons that came with him every day had an injured leg and wing, so he spent more than $2,000 to build a device to help heal it. Tesla truly loved pigeons. The government of the United States has never revealed the engineering specifications of the first atomic bombs, but Richard Rhodes wrote a book called The Making of the Atomic Bomb that contains the most accurate specifications of the bombs based on photographs and documents. He won a Pulitzer Prize for the publication. There is a woman named Veronica Sider who has vision 20 times better than that of an average person. She is able to identify people at a distance of approximately 1 mile. In fact, she holds a Guinness World Record for it, demonstrating an exceptional case of visual acuity. In Ottawa, the capital of Canada, children who want to set up a lemonade stand must have their sign written in both French and English and must donate 7% of their earnings to charity by government order. Grunting in a tennis match is punished with a point against the player. This is because the grunting of some players, such as that of Maria Sharapova, is equivalent in noise to the roar of a lion, and this can affect the opponent. There is only one recorded occasion in history in which a submarine sank or disabled another submerged submarine. It happened in 1945 during the Second World War, when the British submarine HMS Venturer detected and sank the German submarine U-864. The attack was notable because both were completely underwater. The smallest desert in the world measures only 0.97 square miles. It is the Carcross Desert and is located in Canada. It is a series of sand dunes that originated from what remained of a glacier thousands of years ago, although experts say it is not dry enough to truly be called a desert. Even though there is still no substance capable of making a person tell the truth, there are some countries, such as Russia and Canada, that use truth serums for interrogations. Who knows what they are made of? Japanese people believe that a clean bathroom and toilet bring good fortune. This idea is related to traditional beliefs about purity and order in the home. For that reason, many houses and public places maintain very well-kept bathrooms, and the country developed toilets with advanced cleaning and comfort functions. Fire whirls, also known as fire tornadoes, are vortices of flames that occur in places with sufficient heat, such as Australia. They form when hot air rises rapidly and begins to spin, creating intense columns of fire that can move and increase the spread of wildfires. Spider silk, while stored inside their bodies, exists in liquid form. It only becomes solid when it exits their glands and comes into contact with air. The original Deadpool suit for the first movie had an extra layer of fake muscles that had to be removed, and this was because Ryan Reynolds was too muscular and it looked strange. It was also too tight. Ryan Reynolds problems. Japanese women have the highest life expectancy on average among all humans. In Japan, many women live beyond 85 years, thanks to factors such as a diet rich in fish and vegetables, good medical care, and relatively active lifestyles. Norway allowed international students to study for free at its public universities for many years. However, this recently changed. Since 2023, students from outside the European Union and the European Economic Area must pay tuition at most public universities. If you leave Tokyo by plane at 7 in the morning, you would arrive in Hawaii at approximately 8 at night on the previous day, due to the 19-hour difference between time zones. Nachos are called nachos because they were invented by a man named Nacho Anaya in Piedras Negras, Mexico. The dish was called Nachos Special, but later it was shortened to just nachos. Legend says he made them with the ingredients he found at that moment in his kitchen for the wives of some soldiers in that city. 700 black bears were killed to make hats for the soldiers at the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II in 1953. The smallest cat in the world was a Himalayan Persian cat named Tinkertoy that measured only 2.8 inches tall and 7.5 inches long. At that size, it was 6 years old and already an adult. Its tiny size was due to a genetic condition, and despite this, it lived a normal life, becoming a very unusual case within its species. In the city of Pueblo in Colorado, United States, there is an experimental magnetic bullet train built in 1975 with NASA's collaboration that was abandoned due to lack of funding. The Central Intelligence Agency of the United States, the CIA, reads more than 5 million tweets per day. A dead whale that was being transported through the streets of Taiwan exploded and filled nearby cars and shops with viscera and blood. The accident was caused by gases that accumulated inside the decomposing animal. It has been reported that some Japanese companies, such as Toshiba, Sony, or Panasonic, have special areas where they send employees who are no longer needed and give them meaningless tasks or nothing to do until they resign voluntarily to avoid paying severance benefits. If you press the letter S while watching Netflix, You can skip the introduction of series without having to click with the mouse where it says Skip Intro. Very useful for wild Netflix marathons. The skin and feathers of pituhui birds are poisonous. Touching them can produce numbness and tingling in the skin. There are tiny eight-legged arachnids closely related to spiders living in the pores of your face, called demodex, which crawl across your face in the dark to mate. These microorganisms are common in humans and, in most cases, do not cause problems, as they feed on dead skin cells and natural oils, forming part of the skin's ecosystem. In the Mekong River in Thailand, there is a phenomenon where glowing fireballs appear and rise into the sky. Some say they are caused by a dragon or a god, while others say they are flares launched by soldiers. But it has not been confirmed. Bacteria have existed for billions of years. If some are eliminated by medicines, others mutate and become resistant. A rock with a fake cave painting of a man pushing a shopping cart was hung on a wall of the British Museum by street artist Banksy in 2005. Days passed before anyone realized that the piece did not belong there. While between events at the Beijing Olympic Games in 2008, runner Usain Bolt ate only McDonald's nuggets because it was the only food he trusted not to make him sick. He ate up to 100 nuggets per day. There are more than 250,000 sweat glands in the feet. That is why feet sometimes have a smell similar to French cheese. Have you ever walked into a room and completely forgotten why you went in there in the first place? Well, there's a scientific term for that called the doorway effect. This phenomenon occurs because the brain segments information based on changes in environment, which can interrupt the immediate recall of an intention. The famous painting American Gothic by Grant Wood from 1930 captures a normal day of a farmer and his wife, or at least that is what many people believe, because in reality, it is his daughter standing seriously beside the farmer. It is one of the most parodied paintings of all. In 2000, Heinz released colored ketchup that included green, blue, and purple ketchup. They sold very poorly because they resembled spoiled food and were discontinued shortly afterward. When you cut an onion, it releases a gas that reacts with the water in your eyes and produces a diluted form of sulfuric acid. That is why they burn and make you cry. The Animal Planet channel aired a fake documentary twice that claimed mermaids existed. At the time, it had very high ratings, and thousands of people were left believing they were real. Full-body scanners at airports get confused when you wear very shiny clothing with sequins and reflective items. If you wear that type of clothing, you will most likely be checked manually. The Australian taipan snake has the most toxic venom in the animal kingdom. A single bite contains enough venom to kill 100 people. There is a Starbucks cup visible in almost every scene of the movie Fight Club. In reality, this detail is an intentional nod by the director, who included coffee cups as a recurring element in the background of many scenes, although they are not always easy to notice. A lion's roar is one of the loudest sounds an animal can produce. It reaches up to 114 decibels at less than 3.3 feet away and can be heard up to 1.9 miles away. In the state of Texas in the United States, it is illegal to kill Bigfoot if someone ever finds him. Cows produce 200 times more saliva than humans. The body uses 16 different chemical compounds to create a scab. The inventor of the waffle iron did not like waffles. Bones have a gelatinous substance inside called bone marrow that is responsible for producing blood cells. The saying, "all roads lead to Rome," refers to how all boundaries of the Roman Empire were measured from the Golden Milestone, which marked the center of the city of Rome, and, supposedly, all roads also began there. The cartoon The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy won 2 Emmy Awards in 2006 and 2007, respectively. Your nose produces 1 cup of mucus every day. In Kenya, it is popular to run naked at night. In Norway, an unknown man has been relieving himself in golf course holes for more than 10 years. So now you know, maybe do not play golf in Norway. The Italian dictator Benito Mussolini was expelled from school when he was 11 years old because he stabbed a boy in the hand with a pencil and poked another in the eye with a stick. All species of beetles are edible. When removed from the body, lungs can survive longer than all other organs. The country with the longest coastline is Canada, with 151,026 miles. In Japan, Ronald McDonald is called Donald McDonald, because in Japanese, there is no letter R sound. Tarantulas have 8 eyes, but some species cannot see anything. They compensate for this with vibrations and the sense of touch to catch their prey. In the Netherlands, the first completely plastic-free supermarket section was recently opened, hoping that more and more stores will join that initiative. A common cause of death for domestic ferrets is rocking chairs. These animals like to crawl underneath these chairs, and when someone sits down or shifts position, they are crushed. 15% of the air you breathe in an average subway station is made of dead skin cells from other people. Newspaper paper is just as good or better for cleaning windows than specialized microfiber cloths and paper towels. In 2011, a woman bought an invisible piece of art for $10,000. It seems like this postmodern art thing is getting out of control. In the comics, Deadpool has taken down more than one enemy with his ability to talk non-stop. He has driven them crazy with it. It is believed that the flatulence of termites contributes significantly to the problem of global warming. This is a Mary River turtle, better known as the punk rock turtle. The green is actually algae growing on its head. These algae can help it camouflage in its aquatic environment, in addition to giving it that distinctive look that has made it famous. This species is native to Australia and can remain underwater for long periods, thanks to its ability to absorb oxygen through specialized structures in its body. In the Soviet Union, prisoners used to tattoo Lenin and Stalin on themselves because guards and soldiers were forbidden from shooting images of their leaders. If your car's turn signal light starts blinking faster than normal, it may be that the bulb needs to be replaced soon or that one of the bulbs is no longer working. This does not apply to newer cars since they use LED lights. A female black widow spider can devour up to 20 males in a single day. There is a company called True that makes non-reversing mirrors that show you how you actually look to other people. Unlike regular mirrors, these use a special design that avoids lateral inversion, offering an image closer to how others perceive you. The Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt was built using 2 million stone blocks that weighed more than 4,409 pounds each. It took 85 years to complete. The Jackass member Steve-O vomited after inhaling wasabi, the green stuff eaten with sushi, in one of the stunts in the movie Jackass 2. Some ink thickeners used in ancient times included boiled donkey skin fat and insect waste. Most medieval manuscripts were made from pieces of stretched calf skin. To drain all the blood from a person, it would require 1,200,000 mosquito bites. Some mosquitoes can absorb as much as their own weight in liquid with each bite. Redheads produce more vitamin D than people with other hair colors. That means they do not have to sunbathe as much to have more of that vitamin. An American woman named Olivia Chains noticed a metallic taste in the hot dog she was eating. An X-ray examination revealed that she had swallowed a 9mm bullet. Mucus is normally transparent, but when you have an infection, it can turn yellow or even green. It is possible to ask Google to pixelate or blur your house on Google Earth or Street View. Women from the Apatani tribes of the Himalayas enlarged their nostrils with plugs up to 1 inch thick. The name of the actor Shia LaBeouf literally means "thank God for the beef." A corpse can decompose 4 times faster in water than on land. If you search for the word askew on Google, which means crooked, the entire page will tilt slightly. Blood travels through the aorta, which is the main artery of our body, at a speed of 11.8 inches per second. That is why an injury in that part of the body is usually fatal. In the past, tarantula hairs were used to make itching powder. In the city of Dorset in Minnesota, United States, a 3-year-old child was elected mayor. At a university in Bangkok, Thailand, special anti-cheating helmets were once used so students could not copy during exams, but they have since apologized and stopped using them. The country with the most millionaires in the world is the United States. However, the country with the most billionaires, meaning people with more than $1 billion, is China. The peak blood alcohol concentration can be 3 times higher in people who drink on an empty stomach than in those who eat before drinking. A farmer in England could not bring himself to kill the cows he had when it was necessary to do so, so he converted his farm to 100% vegan. There are 3 golf balls on the moon. They were hit by astronaut Alan Shepard during the Apollo 14 mission in 1971. He used an improvised club and hit the balls across the lunar surface, taking advantage of the low gravity and the near absence of air resistance. Cow's milk contains small amounts of pus and blood cells, and on top of that, it can also contain antibiotics and hormones. The bear Bart became very famous after acting in many movies, including the hit The Bear from 1988. There was even a campaign to have him nominated for an Academy Award, but the Academy immediately banned it, stating that animals cannot be eligible for the award. Microsoft gave a computer and tools to a man in Ghana who taught computer science on a chalkboard. Jellyfish are the most efficient swimmers in the animal kingdom. They consume 48% less oxygen than any other marine creature. Niagara Falls can be turned off with a button that diverts the water. In 1969, it was turned off to perform maintenance and rearrange the rocks at the bottom. Global warming helped solve a problem that Bangladesh and India had. They were fighting over an island, but the island disappeared because of rising sea levels. See, global warming is not as bad as we thought, I guess. 75% of the food produced in the world comes from only 12 plants and 5 animal species. Among the plants are crops such as rice, wheat, and corn, which form the dietary base for much of the world's population. As for animals, cattle, pigs, and poultry account for most of the production, showing how dependent our diet is on a small number of species. In general, the darker and more bitter a beer is, the more alcohol it has. This happens because many darker beers use more roasted grains and undergo stronger fermentation. However, this is not always the case, since there are very strong light beers and dark beers with lower alcohol content. When school entrance exams were conducted in Algeria in 2018, internet access was cut off across the entire country to prevent cheating. Banks and other services also stopped operating during the duration of the test. Airports had to standardize their names to 3-letter codes in the 1930s to avoid confusion. Those that originally had only 2 letters added an X, so the X in airport codes usually does not mean anything. In Japan, beer cans have Braille writing, so visually impaired people can identify that it is an alcoholic beverage and not drink it accidentally. A company called NeuroWare sells what they call Miko headphones that read your brain waves and select music based on your mood. They use sensors that detect electrical activity in the brain to interpret levels of concentration or relaxation, adjusting the music in real time to influence how you feel. The actor who has received the most money for acting in a movie is Will Smith, who received $100 million for his role in Men in Black 3 in 2012. 3 dogs were saved during the sinking of the Titanic. Their owners were traveling with them in first-class cabins. Although autism is considered lifelong, there is evidence that between 3% and 25% of affected people recover, according to a study conducted in 2008. 75% of a banana is water. That is not much compared to a radish, which is 95% H2O. When hippos get angry, their sweat turns red. Bill Gates' mansion was designed on an Apple computer. In the town of Churchill, in Manitoba, Canada, it is illegal to lock your car in case someone needs to escape from one of the 950 polar bears in the area. This unusual rule is related to the high presence of these animals in the region, where authorities prioritize people's safety in unexpected encounters with bears in urban areas. Currently, only 1 Viking helmet and 1 chainmail armor are preserved in the world. They were found in Norway, and no others exist because it was not customary to bury warriors with armor. To find out in case they are copied, dictionary writers include fake words, and no one does anything about it. Maybe they invented many words that are used today. Jim Carrey had to leave school and work as a janitor at 15 years old to help his family, which was experiencing financial problems. During that time, his family even lived in a van while trying to recover. Despite those difficulties, he continued practicing comedy and soon began performing in stand-up clubs. Samsung means 3 stars in Korean. The founder chose the name because he wanted the company to sound powerful and enduring like the stars. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson set a new Guinness World Record for the most selfies taken in 3 minutes. He took 105 selfies with his fans during the premiere of the movie Rampage. In the country of Turkmenistan, water, gas, and electricity have been free since 1993. Your skull is made of 22 bones. 8 of them form the cranial case that protects the brain, and the other 14 form the bones of the face. Most of them are connected by sutures, which are rigid joints that keep the structure firm and protect the sensory organs. In 2012, a proposal was launched for the moon to become the 51st state of the United States, but it remained only a 1-day proposal. Radio took 38 years to reach an audience of 50 million users, while the iPod took only 3 years to reach that number. Children and young adults need twice as much oxygen to live as people who are 80 years old. This is because their metabolism is faster and their bodies are growing or more active. As we age, metabolism and the body's demand for oxygen usually decrease gradually. The Lion King movie was considered secondary compared to Pocahontas, which had the best animators working on it. The Lion King earned more than double at the box office, $1 billion, while Pocahontas earned $364 million. In the United States, a wrestling entertainer is called a professional wrestler, while someone who participates in official wrestling competitions is called an amateur wrestler. The option to buy things with a single click was invented by Amazon, which holds the patent. Other companies that use it, such as Apple, must pay a license to implement it. The ultra-luxury Burj Al Arab Hotel in the city of Dubai provides all its guests with a 24-karat gold iPad during their stay. Scotland was one of the few countries that could not be conquered by the Roman Empire during the 1st century. This is the so-called assassin bug. It is an insect that uses the remains of other small insects as a kind of protection or camouflage to go unnoticed in its environment. By covering itself with these remains, it manages to avoid predators and approach its prey without being detected. This behavior is typical of some assassin bug nymphs, which use sticky secretions to attach the debris and enhance their hunting strategy. Although horses were brought from Europe to the Americas starting in the 15th century, it is believed they originally evolved in the Americas, but were hunted until nearly all became extinct, except for some that crossed into Asia. Many people who are allergic to latex are also allergic to bananas. This is due to a phenomenon known as cross-reactivity, since some proteins in natural latex are similar to those found in fruits such as bananas, avocados, or kiwi. The immune system can confuse them and react in a similar way to both. More than 350,000 babies are born, and around 150,000 people die each day. These figures change slightly every year, but show the constant growth of the world's population. Much of the population growth occurs in regions with young and rapidly developing populations. Fiddler crabs are asymmetrical. One of their claws is larger than the other, and if they lose it, the other claw becomes the larger one while the lost one regenerates. Musician Phil Collins appeared as an extra at age 13 in the Beatles movie A Hard Day's Night, where he was part of a group of fans in the final scene. Facebook is blue mainly because the creator of the social network, Mark Zuckerberg, cannot see the colors red and green. In Disney theme parks, especially Disneyland, there is a policy of not selling chewing gum. They do this because Walt Disney himself did not want people stepping on gum while walking. A city in the Netherlands called Giethoorn has no streets and can only be traveled by boat. This earned it the nickname the Venice of the Netherlands. In 2010, 1 year before rising to fame with Game of Thrones, actress Emilia Clarke appeared in a low-budget movie with poor digital effects called Triassic Attack, which was about dinosaur skeletons from a museum that came to life and attacked everyone. The reason Lego figures have holes on the top of their heads is to allow air to pass through in case one gets stuck in a child's throat. This design is part of safety measures developed by the company to reduce choking risks in case of an accident. In the 1950s, researchers observed how a Japanese macaque realized that washing sweet potatoes in salt water made them taste better. Over time, its descendants and its entire troop learned to wash their food, becoming the first observed case of this behavior. In Italy, a new courthouse was built solely to prosecute the mafia. 472 members were sentenced in a trial that lasted from 1986 to 1992. It is the record for the largest trial of all time. In The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, bankers are placed in a lower level of hell than murderers. This was because in those times, charging interest on loans was viewed very negatively and because Dante personally disliked it. In the ancient city of Pompeii, there were more than 200 takeout restaurants. Cooking at home was unusual, which is why most homes did not have kitchens. This was common in many cities of the Roman Empire. There is a massive cloud of water vapor floating in space that is at least 140 trillion times larger than all of Earth's oceans combined, and 100,000 times larger than the Sun. This cloud surrounds a distant quasar and contains enough water to fill countless solar systems, suggesting that water has been present in the universe since very early stages of its formation. The pronghorn, or American antelope, is the second fastest land animal of all. Biologists still do not know the exact reason for its speed, but it is believed they developed it while escaping prehistoric leopards that hunted them more than 10,000 years ago. Tupac Shakur was the first artist to have an album reach #1 on the Billboard charts while still in prison. It was his third album, Me Against the World. Justin Burfield, who plays Reese in Malcolm in the Middle, is actually younger than Frankie Muniz, who plays Malcolm. Although he plays the older brother in the series, he was born in 1986, while Frankie Muniz was born in 1985, creating that curious difference between the actors. The First Lady of the United States is actually a role, not just an honorary title, and it can be held by the president's niece, daughter, or sister, not only by his wife. Throughout history, in cases where the president was not married or his wife could not assume the role, other close women have carried out the ceremonial and social functions associated with the position. Muhammad Ali's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame is the only one not placed on the ground. It is located on one of the walls of the Kodak Theater. It was placed there because the boxer said he did not want his name to be stepped on. The oleander is the official flower of the city of Hiroshima in Japan, because it was the first to bloom after the atomic bomb explosion in 1945. Actor Brad Pitt was banned from entering China for 20 years after starring in the movie 7 Years in Tibet. The number of stars on the European Union flag does not represent anything. There are 12 stars, and they were chosen as a number without political association and as a symbol of unity. Even though the movie Scott Pilgrim is considered a cult film because of its large number of fans, it did not manage to recover its $85 million budget. It lost $10 million even after counting revenue from DVD and Blu-ray sales. In New Delhi, India, if a tree gets sick from pests or falls down, an ambulance arrives to treat it. This has been done since 2009, and it takes 4 people to do the job. The only country in Europe that can be self-sufficient in basic food production is France. All others rely on imports to meet their needs. On Christmas in 1927 in the United States, they left all the runway lights in the country on so that Santa Claus could travel more easily and not crash. The first product to have a barcode and be scanned was a pack of chewing gum in June of 1974. It happened in a supermarket in Ohio in the United States. The product was a pack of Wrigley's Juicy Fruit gum, and that moment marked the beginning of the widespread use of barcodes in commerce. The largest yacht in the world is the Azam, which measures 590 feet and costs $600 million. It has 94,000 horsepower and can travel at a speed of 37.3 miles per hour. A host of a children's show called Soapy Sanders once asked kids to send him the pieces of paper with presidents' faces that their parents had in their wallets or purses, meaning money. Even though it was a joke, he was suspended for 2 weeks. The president of Nintendo of America is named Doug Bowser. Just like Bowser, the enemy of Mario Brothers in the video games who always kidnaps Princess Peach. CDs, DVDs, and Blu-rays are read from the inside out, which is the opposite of how vinyl records are read. Bears are among the most intelligent animals. They are very good at obtaining food and avoiding hunters. Animal trainers claim they are smarter than dogs and nearly at the level of chimpanzees. In Panama City, there was an armed conflict in 1856 because of a drunken American who did not want to pay 5 cents for a slice of watermelon. The conflict ended with 15 American casualties and 2 Panamanian ones, and it is now known as the Watermelon War. The Singing Ringing Tree is a sculpture located in the city of Burnley in England that produces different melodies depending on the direction and intensity of the wind. Standing in a superhero pose for just 2 minutes changes our levels of testosterone and cortisol. It helps us handle stressful situations better and makes us feel good in general. In Japan, there are large hornets whose venom is very potent and can cause intense pain and serious reactions in some people. One of the most well-known species can measure several inches and has a stinger capable of piercing light clothing, in addition to releasing pheromones that attract others, increasing the danger in multiple attacks. When an ant colony is well established and has enough resources to sustain itself, flying ants begin to emerge to explore. Cats are the only animals that have domesticated themselves. They approached humans on their own terms, unlike dogs. In Italy, the number 17 is considered unlucky, unlike 13, which is unlucky in other countries. Baltimore Ravens football team kicker Justin Tucker is an advanced-level opera singer and can sing in 7 different languages. The airplane featured in the movie The Dark Knight Rises crashed 1 year after the film was released. None of the crew survived. In 1969, a musician named Jim Sullivan recorded an album called UFO, which is the equivalent of the word UFO in English, that was full of lyrics about meeting aliens and being abducted by them. 6 years later, the musician disappeared without leaving a trace, and only his car was found abandoned on the road. Jehovah's Witnesses have predicted the end of the world more than 20 times, and the world has not ended. Throughout their history, some members and publications associated with the movement pointed to specific dates for apocalyptic events. Over time, those interpretations were revised or abandoned when the predictions did not come true. The stickers that are attached to some fruits must by law be edible, but if you are going to eat them, it is recommended to wash them first. And if you are washing them, you might as well remove them. Only 30% of all the snakes that appeared in the 2006 movie Snakes on a Plane were real. The rest were plastic models or digital. Dolphins do not drink seawater like humans, since it would make them sick or possibly kill them. Instead, they get all their fluids from the food they eat. Their kidneys are highly adapted to conserve water and eliminate excess salt, allowing them to stay hydrated without needing to drink directly from the ocean. If Finding Nemo were real, when Nemo's mother and siblings died, either Nemo or his father would have had to become female to form a breeding pair, because clownfish are sequential hermaphrodites, which is how they perpetuate the species. Yes, childhood ruined. Comedian Albert Brooks is not his real name. He changed it when he entered the entertainment industry. His original name is Albert L. Einstein, just like the famous physicist. In the year 2000, Michael Jackson entered the Guinness World Records for being the star who has made the most charitable donations. He gave more than $300 million to charity. The city of Quebec, Canada, took 30 years to fully pay off the debt from hosting the 1976 Olympic Games. When they returned to Earth, the members of Apollo 11 had to go through United States Customs because they were bringing objects from somewhere else. They had to declare the moon rocks they had collected. There is a hole in the ozone layer above Antarctica that is twice the size of Europe. Joseph Stalin exiled a filmmaker to a city in the Arctic for 10 years simply because he dated his daughter. Dogs can be allergic to humans, specifically to human dander. If your dog has allergies and undergoes treatment, it should be kept away from people with poor hygiene for almost 12 months. The Vatican is the only place where automatic teller machines give instructions in Latin. There are more pigs in China than in the rest of the 43 countries with the highest production of this animal. The country has the largest pig industry in the world because pork is one of the main meats in its diet. For decades, its production has represented nearly half of all pigs raised on the planet. Only 4 telephone booths remain in Manhattan, New York, and all of them are free. Since Homo sapiens, meaning us, appeared around 200,000 years ago, it is estimated that approximately 110 billion people have existed. We are at a moment in history in which the video game industry generates more money than the film and music industries combined. The longest Facebook comment thread in the world belongs to Duar Kazi, who, with the help of his friends, commented a total of 584,444 times on a single post. This achievement was organized as a coordinated effort among several people over a long period, showing how interaction on social media can scale to surprisingly high numbers. The Pentagon has the capacity for 23,000 people, making it the largest office building in the world. It was designed so that any point could be reached within 10 minutes or less on foot. Nintendo sold more Switch consoles in its first year of existence than all the Wii U consoles that were sold during its entire 4-year life cycle, more or less. Because of the humid climate conditions in which sloths live, mold and plants can grow in their fur. Their hair has small grooves where moisture accumulates, allowing algae and other microorganisms to grow. These algae even give them a greenish tone that helps them camouflage among the leaves. In Korean folktales, instead of saying, "once upon a time," they say something like, "back when tigers smoked." This is used because there was a time when tobacco was so cheap that most people smoked. Every time an armadillo has babies, they are born as identical quadruplets. In fact, this occurs specifically with the 9-banded armadillo, whose reproduction includes a process called polyembryony, where a single fertilized egg divides into 4 genetically identical embryos. As a result, the offspring are the same sex and share exactly the same genetic information. Praying mantises only have one ear, and it is located in the middle of their legs. Baseball player Joe DiMaggio felt he was receiving special treatment when he went to World War II with the Army, so he demanded to be sent into combat. If you put 1,000 spiders in a room without food, sooner or later only one very fat spider will remain. Spiders are extremely carnivorous and cannibalistic. Due to extreme pressure and weather conditions, it literally rains diamonds on Neptune and Uranus. Scientists believe that carbon in their atmospheres is compressed under enormous pressure, forming diamonds that then fall toward the interior of the planet. Lady Gaga's telephone music video holds the Guinness World Record for having the most product placements. No more than 20 seconds pass without a different brand appearing on screen. It is scientifically proven that sandwiches prepared by someone else taste better. This is because watching it being prepared reduces interest. That is why cereal in a cup is better. The official animal of Scotland is the unicorn. This mythical creature appears in the Scottish royal coat of arms since the Middle Ages and symbolizes purity, strength, and freedom. In the heraldry of the United Kingdom, it is usually shown chained, representing the idea that such a powerful force can only be contained by a king. In 1986, a cartoon and comic television program called Young Astronauts was ready to be released, but it was canceled immediately after the Challenger space shuttle disaster.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.